Hi, my name is Dan Clark, and I just want to thank you for tuning into this YouTube. And what I wanted to talk about today was leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. If you're considering leaving Jehovah's Witnesses or you've already left, I just want to tell you, it just really takes great courage. I know for myself, when I was considering leaving, that's all I'd known was Jehovah's Witnesses my whole life. And especially the last 20 years when I was really fully vested in the truth, and I had all these Jehovah's Witness family and everything, and it came time for me to leave, and it was difficult, it was fearful, but I decided to walk through that fear and go what I call toward my promised land. And I think it's a good thing to reflect on is the story of Moses and the Israelites. The Israelites were in bondage there with Pharaoh, and they were wanting to leave. So this cry came out to God, God help us, we want out of here, we want out of bondage. Well, Moses showed up on the scene, and he was there to free the Israelites. But the thought that I had, and the thought that helped me along my journey, was where were the Israelites going? Here this person, this Moses, showed up, and he looks like a magic practicing priest. He's throwing down his staff, and it's turning into a snake, and he's turning water into wine, and the magic practicing priest was turning the water to wine, and all these things were happening. Eventually, Moses outdoes this other guy. But the thought that comes to mind is, where were they going? Where was Moses leading them? They were being led into the wilderness. They were being led into the desert. And there they would wander around for many years, and Moses told them we're heading toward the promised land. And then they came up to a Red Sea, which looked like a big mystery. It actually looked like the end of the world for them. But lo and behold, the sea parted, and they walked through the sea, and they finally made it to their promised land. And that's kind of what the journey has felt like for me. It's felt like that there's been a call from inside to leave the Jehovah's Witness organization. It was as if Jesus was saying, come, and I'll take you to the promised land. But I had to go through the mystery for a while. I had to figure it out for myself. I went to various churches and synagogues and various places, spiritual centers, on my journey. And that was my journey. You may need to go see a cult therapist, cult recovery therapist. You may want to go into a spiritual group or sit in a monastery for a year, or just stay home and pray, or you might be an atheist. It doesn't matter. You'll be directed, just like I was directed. And I can honestly say that I was directed toward my highest and best good. And all I have to do is look at my family, who's still in there and in denial, ignoring all the warning signs, not listening to that voice within themselves, and just being denial and just following blindly. And I also look at those who didn't leave because of fear. They just couldn't break free. They just stayed there, and they tell me that they're just pretending. They know it isn't the truth, but they're just hanging out there. Well, how can that have anything to do with any wholeness or completeness? But that's their choice. But what I can say is those who risk feeling the fear and going anyway and walking through their fears. Life is going to be full of fears and new jobs and new relationships and new things, and you have to face those. So I think it's a credit to those who can face their fears and walk through them. And that's what you have to do. You have to call on courage to be able to leave the Jehovah's Witness. It's your whole infrastructure. In a sense, it's like your whole God idea, the whole Jehovah Witness ideology, and it's a huge structure that's collapsing. But there's a new one that wants to be built, and it's a spiritual structure. And Jesus said, you can build a structure made with hands and stone. I think of the Watchtower organization. But he says, if it's torn down, I'll rebuild it in 3 days. I'll rebuild it in you, the spiritual temple within you. And I think that's what God wants to do with all of us. He wants to build a spiritual temple within each one of us, and so that the Spirit, can shine through us, so that light that God said that we're the light of the world can shine through. That light that Jesus shined, God's light through Christ, God's light through us. It's a beautiful hope. So I just want to encourage you to, as you are leaving and moving away from Jehovah's Witnesses, It's a little scary, it's fearful, but there's a lot of help. That'll help you in every way. You'll find out tomorrow that you're still alive, that the sun will shine, you'll still have your job, you'll still have your car and automobile, you'll probably still have your family. Everything will still be intact, and I think that'll be a big surprise for you, just to see that life is still going on. God's still feeding me. I'm still being taken care of, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure many, many, many doors will open for you, many doors within yourself, many talents that you didn't know that you have. Just be courageous and walk through that fear, and just reflect on that story of Moses, that for the majority of the time they didn't know where they were going. They just were moving toward their promised land.